for the first time in a gazillion years because it's a gazillion degrees out here. So good day for me to wear white because, gosh, it's getting hot. I don't know where you guys are, but here in Colorado, it is getting hot, hot, hot. So we're going to get started any moment now. This is kind of our daily meeting. We do this with the Holy Mountain community every single day. It kind of has three parts that we break it into. Part one is learning. Part two is meditation. And part three is a brief prayer. So we're going to kind of start with learning. It seems like the best place to go. And this is kind of just a great way to start your day. We've been doing it about 2 months, and we find that people seem to really love it. So, it's become a regular, relied upon thing for many of us. I'm just going to make sure that the link is here for everyone. Cool. And some of the Holy Mountain regulars may be planning to tune in on Zoom, because that's where we usually do it, or we used to do it. I think we're going to kind of switch the whole thing over to Twitch, just because honestly it's much easier. It's much easier. So I do need to edit the events. That's what we got to do here, so that it'll bring people here. But I'll get that going, I think, pretty shortly. Right now, let me head over to the Zoom and let people know that we're here on Twitch. And that should let us get started. And I have a really exciting... Usually we do the learning by sharing some stuff on YouTube. I'm very excited about what I was called to share today. So we will be looking at some stuff from Mullah Nasrudin, who was a figure of legend that I grew up with and has come up...
Recording in progress.
Oof.
Recording stopped.
That was noisy. But yeah, we'll get started any second here. Cool. Hopefully it's, send the message letting everyone know we are here. Hey, welcome to whoever's tuned in. Awesome. We got one viewer. I guess the message is getting out there. So hopefully we'll start in a couple minutes. I know it's confusing. I'm wearing a white shirt. We're in a different place. Nothing seems normal. I totally understand, but I promise you guys, everything will be okay. Everything's going to be okay. As crazy as it seems, everything will be okay. Hey, 66X, welcome. Cool. This, I think, may be the first time you're joining us for one of these morning things, so that's dope. Hey, Hearthstone's here, too. Now everyone's filling in. Awesome. Let's give it a few more minutes and see, because I know, a lot of confusing stuff. Like I said, we're in a different place. I'm wearing a white shirt. Who knows? Who knows? There's a lot of difference today. Let me make sure I'm looking at the multi-stream chat so I can see what everybody sees. Udi Cat's here. Welcome back, Udi. Good to see you. Awesome. Scorpio Laludo, welcome. Oh, 66X, that's Shade. That's good to see you. Cool. It's cool to see everyone tuning in. It's cool that hopefully we're going to get some people who otherwise might not have been checking out the Holy Mountain stuff. Right, the white shirt. I knew it. I knew somebody would come in here and be like, wait a second. Something's not right. This dude, white shirt wearing dude. I don't like it. But yes, the white shirt is because it's too fucking hot here, man. It is like, the summer just turned on, and I'm like baking if I even step outside in a black shirt right now. So we're going white for a little while. I'm going to switch to the white tees for a minute. With that said, looks like we got a decent crowd up in here. I will put on the learning, but I want to line this one up. I want to talk a little bit about what we're gonna cover. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with my man Nasrudin. This particular copy was given to me by a close friend, but I've grown up with these stories of Mullah Nasrudin. He's well known in Sufism. And every kind of country of the Islamic world seems to claim that, like, no, he's really from here. And he's just this trickster fool, wandering dervish, just this brilliant character. I want to read to you guys some stories from his book. And this week in general, I want to explore the way of the fool. It was a discussion that I had with my friend Michaela yesterday. We talked for hours about it. And it's something near and dear to my heart that brings me a lot of peace. So sharing that with people, if it's helpful, it's something I'd like to do. The way I think about it is like this, like, my life is a lot better now that my business card says full, not profit. Does it change how I help people? No. Does it change what people call me? I don't know. It changes what I call me. I don't know if it changes what everyone else calls me. Hopefully it makes it easier for them to call me whatever they want to call me. Yeah? Grand Rising, Catherine, by the way. I don't want to ignore you. Okay, Chris, cool. Chris got the message, I think. Let me just make sure Chris got the message that we're at Twitch TV. Chris, you got that message?
I'm over here zoning out into the conversation. I'll be on Twitch.
All right, cool, brother.
I'll go right now.
Sweet. All right, so Chris got the message. He's there on Twitch. Or he's coming over here on Twitch, and then everyone will be here. That's fine. All right. So first I want to play kind of like an introductory story of Nasrudin. This is Idris Shah collects a lot of that. If you're familiar with Idris Shah, the book The Sufis is by Idris Shah. Done a lot of work about the book of the Dervishes. Just a lot about Islamic mysticism. So Nasrudin kind of comes into that purview. This story is about 11 minutes, and then it's just a good intro to Nasrudin and the ideas, and I think it's a poignant parable that will be fulfilling for everybody. And then I'll read a couple stories from the book. They're very short. They're little not even full-page stories. They're just little thingies. So, here. We'll start with the Legend of Nostradine. This one, I have listened to it. I think you'll enjoy it.
A certain crafty villain was entrusted with the education of a number of orphans. Observing that children have certain strengths and weaknesses, he decided to take advantage of this knowledge. Instead of teaching them how to acquire a skill in learning, he told them that they already possessed it. Then he insisted upon their doing some things and refraining from others, and thus kept most of them blindly subject to his direction. He never revealed that his original commission had been to teach them to teach themselves. When these children grew up, he noticed that some had detached themselves from his authority, despite all his efforts, while others remained bound to it. He was then entrusted with a second school of orphans. From these he did not directly demand obedience and respect. Instead, he enslaved them to his will by telling them that mental culture was the sole aim of education and by appealing to their self-pride. "The mind," he told them, "will give you universal understanding." This must be true, thought the children. After all, why should we not be able to solve all problems by ourselves? He supported the doctrine by demonstrations. "This man," he said, "is enslaved by his emotions. What a disastrous case. Only the intellect can control the emotions. That other man, however, is ruled by his intellect. How much happier he is, how free from emotional frenzy." He never let the children guess that there was an alternative to the choice between emotions and intellect, namely intuition, which could, however, be overcome or blurred by either of these, and always dismissed its appearance as irrelevant coincidence or guesswork. There are two kinds of habit, one derived from mere repetition, the other from intuition harnessed both to the emotions and to the intellect. But since intuitive habit is associated with true reality, this villainous old man simply abolished it in favor of repetitive habit. Some of the children, nevertheless, suspected that certain miraculous aspects of life did not fit into his fragmentary pattern, and asked him whether there was not, perhaps, something else undisclosed, some secret power. He told one group of questioners, "Certainly not. Such a notion is superstitious and due to faulty mental processes. Do not put any value on coincidence. Coincidence means no more than accident, which, though perhaps of emotional interest, lacks all intellectual significance." To another group, he said, "Yes, there is more in life than you will ever know, because it cannot be acquired by honest extension of the scientific information which I gave you, or which you managed to collect under my direction." But he took care that the two groups did not compare notes, and so realized that he had given two contradictory answers. Now, from time to time, when the children reported inexplicable events to him, he consigned these to oblivion as having no scientific relevance. He knew that, without taking stock of intuition, the children would never escape from the invisible net in which he had bound them, and that the intuitive knowledge of secrets excluded from their education could be won only when they were in a certain harmony of mind with the emotions. So he taught them to ignore variations in their mental condition, for once they discovered that powers of apprehension vary from hour to hour, they might guess how much he had concealed from them. His training confused their memory of such intuitions as they had been granted, and they were willing to think along the logical lines he had prepared for them. The children whom this villain had mistaught in his first school were now grown up, and since he had let them come nearer to understanding the true nature of life, certain casual remarks that they made to members of the second school disturbed their faith in scientific truth. So he hastily gathered those of the first school who still remained loyal to him, and sent them out to preach incomprehensible doctrines purporting to explain the hidden mechanism of life. Then he directed the attention of the second school to these teachers, saying, "Listen carefully, but never fail to use your intellect." The intellectual children soon found that there was nothing to be learned from these doctrines, and said, "They contradict logic. Only with logic are we on firm ground." Yet some members of the first school who had broken away from the old villain's teaching reproached them, saying, "We, too, reject these doctrines, but that they fail to explain the secret mechanism of life of which you are in search does not deny its existence." They answered, "Can you then put the secret in logical terms?" but were told that to do so would be to deny its truth. So they protested, "Nothing is true that cannot face the cold light of reason." A few, however, cried out, "We are ready to believe everything you tell us. We think you are wonderful." But they were as hopelessly lost as the intellectual children and the teachers of the incomprehensible doctrine, because they trusted only to a slavish credulity, not to the habit of intuition. A state of educative chaos supervened. So many different ways of thought were current that it was often said, "I cannot trust anyone. I must find out for myself by the exercise of my supreme will." The old villain who had bred this confusion thrived on it like a madman rejoicing in deeds of violence. Especially his cult of the intellect encouraged egotism and discord. And to those who still felt an inner uncertainty, a sense of incompleteness, or a hankering for something whole and true, he said, "Distract your minds by ambition." He taught them to covet honors, money, possessions, sexual conquests, to compete with their neighbors, to immerse themselves in hobbies and diversions. It is said that when a horse cannot find grass, it will accept hay. For want of the green grass of truth, they accepted the dry hay with which he filled their mangers. The old man devised more and more distractions for them, vogues, crazes, lotteries, fashions in art, music and literature, sporting competitions, and all kinds of achievements which offered them temporary relief from this sense of lack. They were like a patient who accepts palliatives from his physician because he assures them that his disease is incurable. Or they were like the monkey and the crabapple. He clutched the crabapple inside a bottle, but the neck was too narrow for him to withdraw his hand and the crabapple too. Unable to escape because he was hampered by the bottle, he was soon captured and put into a sack, but he proudly cried, "I still have the apple." The fragmentary view of life forced on mankind by the old villain was now accepted, and the few people who tried to point out where truth really lay were thought insane and readily refuted by the old argument, "If what you say is true, then prove it to us logically." False coin is accepted only because true coin exists, and deep in their hearts many people knew this. But they were like children born in a house from which they had never been allowed to stray, doomed to walk from one room to another, without knowing that there could be another house elsewhere, with different furnishings and a different view from its windows. Nevertheless, the tradition that true coins exist, that there is another house, and that some horses eat grass, not hay, survived in a book which was not a book, delivered by direct succession from an ancient sage to one of his descendants named Hussein. Hussein searched the world until he found the man who, through craft and guile, would give the teaching of this book fit expression, namely the incomparable Mullah Nasrudin. Thereupon this book, which was not a book, was interpreted by the actions of a mullah who was no mullah, who was both wise and a fool, who was both a man and many men. And the teaching was thus brought to the attention of the children who had been misled. Mullah Nasrudin broke out of the net which had been cast by the old villain. For how can one burn a book which is not a book? How can one name a fool who is no fool? How can one punish a man who is a multitude? How can one strike a man who is oneself? Study the adventures of Mullah Nasrudin, plumb the depth of the subtleties. He is like a tree which has nourishment in its roots and an edible sap, whose leaves are potherbs, whose flowers, fruit, branches, and seeds are all variously the same. Can a tree be a man, or a man a tree?
So that's your intro to Mullah Nasrudin. The stories are just these short, funny stories, but you kind of need that intro to kind of give you the spiritual context. Shout out to everyone who's tuning in. Shout out to Cecile for tuning in. El Cronaldo, don't spam in my thing. And if you're going to be here, at least hit follow. Come on, jerk. Dan Chen, I didn't even see you sneak in here, man. Good to see you. So I'm going to read some stories of Mullah Nasrudin from... This is the exploits of the incomparable Mullah Nasrudin. There are many of these collections of stories. This one is called The Alternative. This one's really funny. And the stories are much funnier. Like that one was like this very poignant, that introduction you just heard. The stories are like jokes. Like the stories, I laugh every time. I am a hospitable man, said Nasrudin to a group of cronies at the tea house. Very well then. Take us all home to supper, said the greediest. Nasrudin collected the whole crowd and started towards his house with them. When he was almost there, he said, I'll go ahead and warn my wife, you just wait here. His wife cuffed him when he told her the news. There's no food in the house. Turn them away. I can't do that. My reputation for hospitality is at stake, he said. Very well, she said. You go upstairs and I'll tell them you're not here. So after nearly an hour, the guests became restless and crowded round the door, shouting, Let us in, Nasrudin. And the mullah's wife went out to them and said, Nasrudin is out. They said, but we saw him go into the house, and we've been watching the door the whole time. She was silent. The mullah, watching from an upstairs window, was unable to contain himself. Leaning out, he shouted, I could have gone out by the back, couldn't I? That's what my dad told me when I was a kid. All the stories are all like that. Like, it's the classic trickster stories, right? Where, like Wile E. Coyote, where it blows up in his face at the end. It's that kind of thing. A few more, and then we'll go into meditation. Why we are here. Walking one evening along a deserted road, Mullah Nasrudin saw a troop of horsemen coming towards him. His imagination started to work. He saw himself captured and sold as a slave or impressed into the army. Nasrudin bolted, climbed a wall into a graveyard, and lay down in an open tomb. Puzzling at his strange behavior, the men, honest travelers, followed him. They found him stretched out, tense and quivering. What are you doing in that grave? We saw you run away. Can we help you? Just because you can ask a question does not mean there's a straightforward answer to it, said the mullah, who now realized what had happened. It all depends on your viewpoint. If you must know, however, I am here because of you, and you are here because of me. That's another classic Nasrudin, right? Like that's... And of course we have the metaphor of the graveyard. Everyone's in the graveyard there. We can unpack that. He's terrified of someone, so he runs away. Someone else sees someone running away and goes to help. At the end, they both end up in the graveyard. A few more. Are you guys digging this? Let me know if this is not your style. I think you're digging it, but I can't tell. Did your parents read you bedtime stories or morning stories, wake time stories? This is what in our house we read morning stories. So, this is your guys' morning stories. Nasrudin sometimes took people for trips in his boat. One day, a fussy pedagogue hired him to ferry him across a very wide river. As soon as they were afloat, the scholar asked whether it was going to be rough. "Don't ask me nothing about it," said Nasrudin. "Have you never studied grammar?" "No," said the mullah. "In that case, half your life has been wasted." The mullah said nothing. Soon a terrible storm blew up. The mullah's crazy cockleshell was filling with water. He leaned over towards his companion. "Have you ever learned to swim?" "No," said the pedant. "In that case, schoolmaster, all your life is lost, for we are sinking." Oh, God, I fucking love this guy. Hilarious. So it's sort of like Aesop's Fables. These don't have morals, though. Aesop's Fables teach you morals. These are these little joke things to make us humble and wise. That's basically it. To realize that everyone's a fool, humble us all, and see the wisdom in us all. That's kind of it. We're all Nasrudin. You know, these are like coyote stories. We'll do coyote stories later this week. We're going to do the Way of the Fool all week. So we'll do Nasrudin. We'll do more Chuangzi, because people were digging that. We'll do coyote stuff. We will do all these trickster stories, and you'll see the themes, right? Maybe we'll get some Mercury stories in here too. Nasrudin was throwing handfuls of crumbs around his house. "What are you doing?" someone asked him. "Keeping the tigers away." "But there are no tigers in these parts." "That's right," he said. "It's effective, huh?" That's, again, classic Nasrudin, right? We do that all the time. One day, Nasrudin lent his cooking pots to a neighbor who was giving a feast. The neighbor returned them, together with one extra pot, a very tiny pot. "What is this?" said Nasrudin. "According to law, I have given you the offspring of your property, which was born when the pots were in my care," said the joker. Shortly afterwards, Nasrudin borrowed his neighbor's pots, but did not return them. The man came back around to get them back. "Alas," said Nasrudin, "they are dead. We have established, have we not, that pots are mortal." This is very Persian humor. Like, this kind of humor is the humor that I grew up with. Like, my dad's sense of humor, exactly. It's not exactly the same as Western sense of humor, but I find it unfucking believably funny. All right. I don't know. It's just, like, really funny to me. The Smuggler. Time and again, Nasrudin passed from Persia to Greece on donkey back. Each time he had 2 panniers of straw. It's like bundles of straw. And trudged back without them. Every time the guards searched him for contraband. They never found any. "What are you carrying, Nasrudin?" He said, "I'm a smuggler." Years later, more and more prosperous in appearance, Nasrudin moved to Egypt. One of the customs men met him there. "Tell me, Mullah, now that you are out of the jurisdiction of Greece and Persia, living in such luxury, what was it that you were smuggling that we could never catch you?" He said, "Donkeys." Ha! He's riding the donkey the whole time. And a lot of these stories, they're funny stories, but they're the reason that they've passed through the ages is that they're true. They're true, right? Our most valuable cargo, the donkeys that what Nasrudin's smuggling to make himself rich, it's the donkey he's riding, right? Our most valuable cargo that we have. It's not something we get. It's not something we seek. It's not something we make. It's here. Yeah. So, all the stories have these like profound lessons, and also they're fucking hilarious, and they show us how silly we are. When this is why I like Chuangzi too. You know, when we think about a human decision, we can get very attached to like, oh, this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing, this is the advantageous thing. This is sometimes when we abstract it a little bit and show parallels in these stories, we realize how silly we're being. This one's called "How Nasrudin Created Truth." Sorry, the Smuggler is one of my favorite jokes in the world. Laws as such do not make people better, said Nasrudin to the king. They must practice certain things in order to become attuned to inner truth. This form of truth resembles apparent truth only slightly. The king decided that he could and would make people observe the truth. He could make them practice truthfulness. His city was entered by a bridge. On this, he built a gallows. The following day, when the gates were opened at dawn, the captain of the guard was stationed with a squad of troops to examine all who entered. An announcement was made. Everyone will be questioned. If he tells the truth, he will be allowed to enter. If he lies, he will be hanged. Nasrudin stepped forward. Where are you going? I'm on my way, said Nasrudin slowly, to be hanged. We don't believe you, they said. Very well, if I've told a lie, hang me. He said, but if we hang you for lying, we will have made what you said come true. That's right. Now you know what truth is. Your truth. This one is The Cat and the Meat. Nasrudin gave his wife some meat to cook for guests. When the meal arrived, there was no meat. She had eaten it. The cat ate it, all 3 pounds of it, she said. Nasrudin put the cat on the scales. It weighed 3 pounds. If this is the cat, said Nasrudin, where's the meat? If, on the other hand, this is the meat, where's the cat? That one is deeper than all these are much deeper than they let on, right? The cat and the meat. If we don't know anything outside ourselves, if the total weight of our knowledge is ourselves, and the total weight of ourselves is our knowledge, then when we know which one's the cat, which one's the meat. Someone saw Nasrudin searching for something on the ground. What have you lost, Mullah? Where exactly did you drop it? He said, at home I dropped it. He said, why are you looking here? Nasrudin said, well, there's more light here. I don't know the Yiddish story, but, well, we could do Yiddish tales. Let me see if I can find some Yiddish folktales. I'm not very learned on Yiddish folktales, Ari Party, so I've taken some classes on them. I'm not totally unlearned, and I know more about, like, Hasidic tales, but a lot of the traditional, like, collected Yiddish folktales, I actually didn't grow up with a lot of those. My kids I grew up with them, so I've been exposed. But that's a great idea. Thank you. So there is more light here. Let's talk about that one, right? We search for the truth, not where it is, but where we think we can find it, because we can see more clearly. That's silly. That's very silly. This one is called The Fool. A philosopher, having made an appointment to dispute with Nasrudin, called and found him away from home. Infuriated, he picked up a piece of chalk and wrote "Stupid oaf" on Nasrudin's gate. As soon as he got home and saw this, the mullah rushed to the philosopher's house. He said, I had forgotten that you were coming over, and I apologize for not having been home. Of course, I remembered the appointment as soon as I saw you wrote your name on my door. This one is, let's see what time it is. I'll read a few more. You guys digging this? 2, 3 more? Yeah, we'll do a few more. Cooking by candle. Nasrudin made a wager that he could spend a night on a nearby mountain and survive in spite of ice and snow. But they sat down in his reception room waiting for the food. Hours passed. They started to mutter about food. Let's go and see how it's getting on, said Nasrudin. Everyone trooped into the kitchen. They found an enormous pot of water, under which a candle was burning. The water was not even lukewarm. It's not ready yet, said the mullah. I don't know why. It's been there since yesterday. So again, they said that the candle gives warmth. He proved to them that it's all relative. The candle gives warmth, but it doesn't give enough warmth to cook by. It certainly doesn't give you enough warmth to sleep on a mountain by. When we deal in these sophistic absolutes, this is absolutely a lesson for our time, right? We deal in these absolutes and say, this is good, this is bad, this does this does that. It's always a matter. It's always relative. You know, we tend to run to the extremes when we have to make a statement about things for other people because we think we're serious. We don't realize that we're fools. A few more. A lady brought her small son to the Mullah's school. He's very badly behaved, she explained, and I want you to frighten him. The Mullah assumed a threatening posture, eyes flaming and face working. He jumped up and down and suddenly ran out of the building. The woman fainted. When she had come to, she waited for the Mullah, who returned slowly and gravely. I asked you to frighten the boy, not me. Dear madam, said the Mullah, do you not see how afraid I was of myself as well? When danger threatens, it threatens all alike. This one is salt is not wool. One day the Mullah was taking a donkey load of salt to market and drove the ass through a stream. The salt was dissolved. The Mullah was angry at the loss of his load. The ass was frisky with relief. Next time he passed that way, he had a load of wool. After the animal had passed through the stream, the wool was thoroughly soaked and very heavy. The donkey staggered under the soggy load. Ha! Shouted the Mullah. You thought you would get off lightly every time we went through water, didn't you? Okay. I don't know if anyone else is getting as much of a kick out of this as I am, because I think this is like the funniest stuff in the world. I think it's a cultural humor thing. But the lessons are universal. The lessons are, we're all fools. We all apply something that's appropriate for one situation to the wrong situation and think we're very right and very sure because of it. We all go through a situation once and come out easy and go through it again and think it'll come out easy again, right? We go through once carrying salt and we go through another time we're carrying wool and we don't know what's on our back. And we go through the water again, instead of getting lighter, we went through the shit and this time we finally got caught. This is the condition. This is the human condition. That's why these stories are so delightful, because every single one of us can relate to this. And the way of the fool, as I know it, and as I have practiced it, is leaning into it, man. Laugh at yourself. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Every single time where it's very easy for us to laugh at someone else